High Vibe Nation is live. Welcome to the High Vibe Nation, where we have set out to raise the vibration of every human being on the planet. Your hosts on this journey are Sherry Gideons and Pamela Aubrey. So let's join them now in their current interview with a high-vibing individual.
Hello and welcome to the High Vibe Nation, a revolution of love. It's time to raise your vibration and live your highest life now. I'm your host, Sherry Gideons, and this is my co-host, Pamela Aubrey.
Welcome, everyone. We are so excited to bring you a very special guest tonight. Her name is Lisa Copeland, and with more than 25 years of proven success, she is a powerful female keynote speaker, business leader, and dedicated pioneer in sales and brand strategy. She's been a trailblazer. So she's revolutionized the way the automotive industry has received many awards and honors for the way she has improved their systems. Lisa's consulting firm, Lisa Copeland Global Enterprises, helps business owners and entrepreneurs build more scalable and successful businesses that generate more profits through her strategy, The Art of the Big Sell. She's focused on selling a movement over a product with a vast client list that includes Google, Subaru N.A, Dell, State Farm, H&R Block, and many more. Today, she's going to share with us how to become a Sellionaire in your industry virtually through influencing on social media and understanding riches are in the niches.
Well, that's great.
Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Wow, hi, thank you. Yeah, what a great introduction. Thank you so much.
So great to have you here.
Well, thank you. I think you've got your StreamYard looks so pretty and so nice. And I use StreamYard too, and I love it. I love how we can personalize it and how we can put our branding on it. And anyways, but it looks beautiful.
Awesome. Well, it coordinates perfectly with your background. It's kind of sparkly, and I love it.
I know. I mean, there's sometimes I get on some shows with some of the guys, and they're like, oh, on the sparkles. But the girls usually appreciate it, so it's good.
Yeah.
So, as you know, on this show, we love to talk about being high vibe.
Yeah.
So if you would, please tell us what it means to you to be high vibe.
You know, I think high vibe is high energy. And I think that the whole world is about energy. And so it's the kind of energy you put off and, you know, and it's hard. I think in today's world, I think a lot of people are really, really beat down. And something I was talking to a friend the other night, and I think that they're desocialized. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, I said something to my friends last week. I said, hey, why don't we jump on and have a cocktail? And they're like, I can't do another Zoom today. I cannot do another Zoom today. I'm Zoom working. I'm Zooming with my, I can't do it again. Mm-hmm. So it's just interesting. So I don't know. So I think that's my vibe.
Yeah. That's going to be like a new term or something.
Yeah. But it's like, how do you desocialize on cameras? Right. You know, when it used to be such a treat to be able to do it. And I think people are just craving being with their people and their friends. And I don't know about where, I know Sherry's in Arizona, and Pamela, I know you told me where you were.
Idaho.
In Idaho. Okay, so we're about to go on lockdown again, rumor has it. I'm sure Arizona is. I don't know about Idaho, but for a little while we got out of our cages. Right. And it was like, yay, awesome. We got to see our friends. Like, you know, we were safe and we social distance, but like we got to see each other and hang out. And so the rumor has it that Texas is going to get shut down again on Friday. So,
wow. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think this has been really trying for a lot of people, and, you know, just trying to come up with ways, find different ways to keep their energy up and to stay motivated and to keep doing the things that are really important. It's challenging.
Yeah. You know, so I go out in the mornings because well, I'm not sure how hot it is in Idaho, but I know it's hot in Arizona. I was just there. But, you know, so I'm out about 6:30 in the morning, and my neighborhood is like a freeway. I mean, everyone's walking and all kinds of stuff. Like, it is crazy. Hundreds of people. Like, I live in a master plan type community. People are everywhere out walking before, you know, kind of before the sun comes up. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one way, and you never saw that before. Right. And then, like, as the sun goes down, like it's 7 o'clock here, so 8:30 or something like that, you'll see those 100 people back out again. Yeah. So I think that's the only way that, like, if you work from home, that's the only way that you get out.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, that's very true for me. And I notice I live near a park, and so I walk at the park almost nightly, and it's just packed every night. People are out doing the same stuff, playing soccer or badminton. So yeah, I think it's great. People are rediscovering outdoors.
A lot of our parks, they're shutting down. Not so much in my county, but in the next county, which is Austin, the Travis. So they've shut a lot of them down. And so only place you can do is just go walk around your neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Oh my God, y'all.
We have a park right across the street from from my house, and they put a gate around the whole park so people can't go into it, which is sad.
So is the park by your house? Is it over like by the what's that fabulous spa in Scottsdale that I love so much?
I know exactly. I can't think of the name right now, but I know it's not over by that one. This one's just literally directly across the street from our house, but the park is a nice place to go and, do the grass thing and take the dog.
I'm still a little confused by the shutting down of the parks, I'll admit, because I'm kind of like, is the air different when you get outside the park? How does that, I mean, if you're doing your 6 feet, are you just, is it still not far enough? Like,
so I totally understand shutting down the playgrounds and stuff, right? Because kids are little germ vibers, right? So I totally get shutting down that. And then in Austin, they shut down the basketball courts, which I get it because they're one-on-one, right? And then the soccer fields. But it's for goodness sakes, why do we have to shut down the trails?
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't know, y'all.
Exactly. Well, so Lisa, start us out. I know that you've been very successful in an industry dominated by men. So what do you attribute your success to?
Vodka. No. Oh my gosh, yes. Working in a male-dominated industry. I think everybody should have to do it once in their lifetime. I think it'll show you what you're made of. I can tell you all that for sure. I really, Sherry, I don't know. I can't answer that except that I do what I love to do until I don't love doing it anymore. And then I get out. And that's what happened to me in the automotive industry. I felt like my team, I had an amazing team. We rung all the bells. They were awesome. We broke a world sales record. I had a lot of success in the auto industry. 2016 comes, it's not fun anymore. I'm like, where is there to go from here type thing? And there were some issues with the brand and some other things. So, at that point, it was time to say, okay, it's time to pivot. It's time to do something different for sure. Did we lose Sherry?
Well, I was going to say, it looks like she froze, so she'll be right back, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think the whole world's on StreamYard now. And everybody out there, if you've got shows, it is the best. This is the best platform there is, I think. It's what I use. Yeah. So anyways, so, I don't know that somebody can do it for many, many, many years. It's a beating. It's a grind, and it's tough, and it's tough for women. And I try to still support all the women in the automotive industry. I still have many women that I mentor that I think the world of, and I admire the fact that they have stayed in the game.
Yeah. Well, and to that point, I think it's remarkable when women get into those industries to begin with, because there's it can be really intimidating, especially in the beginning. So what are some of the things that really kind of helped you to launch in, sort of that challenging type of environment?
I didn't want to get in the automotive industry. So, go back to 1986 in Dallas, Texas. I was in school. I was a fashion major, wrecked my car, hadn't paid my car insurance, just like any good fashion major, was not spending my money the right way. And so I didn't have a choice. It was my car was totaled. My boyfriend at the time, I've now been married to for almost 32 years, he had just graduated from college, and he was selling cars kind of in the interim. And he goes, well, you ought to sell cars. I'm like, why would I want to sell cars? He's like, because you get a free car to drive, because you get a demo. And I knew that because he had one. And I was like, I can sell skirts. I can sell cars. So, so I would not have gotten in the auto industry if it, as I like to say in both the books I wrote, if it wasn't by accident.
Right.
I got into the auto industry by accident, and I did love it. I did You know what? Here's the deal. I was treated so poorly, so poorly. I wrote the whole story in my second book, Car Buying Her Way. And, they put a baby alligator on my desk. I was at the biggest store in the country, the biggest domestic car dealer in the country, and 99 guys and me. That's really how it was. It was very hard to get hired, just all of the above. Right. And so, but I had to, right? And so I think that people in the beginning, when things are really hard, like if you're in a very challenging career, like a woman in a male dominated industry, or you're in something that you're kind of like, why am I here? Sometimes you stay in the game because you have to. And that's what I did. I certainly was not out to change the world in 1986, but I could not lose that free car to drive because I could not get a loan in my own name. My dad and my parents were furious. I had not paid my car insurance. So I really had nowhere to go. So I had to, it was sink or swim.
Yeah, I was going to say, you had a lot of motivation, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And, honestly, there's probably a lot of people right now that are listening to us that are in a similar situation where they're trying to, and I know this has become like the popular word to pivot, but they're trying to figure out what that next thing is going to be because what they were doing before has fallen through.
Yeah, that's just it. Talking to people around the country and just, people that I know and, either their jobs have been furloughed, they've been cut back. They don't care for the new normal. And what I've seen in many companies is that they've cut back and they have figured out that they can do okay with a smaller workforce.
Yeah.
And so that is going to be a thing, right? And so I think that more and more people, what I hope and what I talk to people about when I do my show is that I hope that if you all have some time, and if you've had some time during these last several months, that you have done something to create that pivot. You've done something for yourself. Maybe you've gotten another certification. You've gotten a real estate license. You've, done something different because, at the end of the day, I think that this pandemic has shown people more than anything that we cannot rely on the big corporations or the government or anybody to take care of us, that we've got to be self-sufficient and we've got to figure out a way to take care of ourselves when everything else fails.
I love that. And I know one of the areas that you're focusing on with people is social media and influencing. So can you talk to us a little bit about what you're doing with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I really got into social media probably back in 2011. And I say I got into it. I think in 2009 when my daughter graduated from high school and was going to college. And my very dear friend came and said, there's this thing called Facebook and we can watch what our kids are doing on Facebook. And she was like she's probably watching this right now going, oh my God, but she knows the story. And so I got this Facebook account so I could watch what she was doing going off to Texas A&M. And so, and so anyways, that's really how I got into social media. And then and I never did watch her because I got so enamored with everything else. But in 2011, when I got back in the auto industry, I found out the power of social media. There were times when we needed to hit a number to be able to get bonuses at the end of the month. And I could put it out on social media and say, hey, we need to sell X amount of cars in the next 3 days. We're making a smoking deal. And all of a sudden people are sharing it and people are coming in and they're sending messages. And those were people I would have never, ever had contact with before. Number one, we would have had to have spent tens and thousands of dollars in television commercials and digital ads to be able to reach that same audience that we could do socially.
Yeah.
And so that's when I learned the power of social media. And then I could fast forward it to 2012, the months that we tried, when we broke the world sales record, my amazing team did it. And we put it out on social media and people were coming from all over the nation actually to buy cars from us. Hi, Sherry, you're back.
I'm back.
But people were coming from all over the country to buy cars from us and they wouldn't have known about us. And so I think that it's really, really important that people understand the power of influence. And that doesn't, and you look at influencer brands and, hey, Danette, how are you? Danette and I know each other very well. She's awesome. What is the power of influence? The power is, you don't have to be Kim Kardashian, but let's be real. She built her empire on Twitter. And most people think she did it on Instagram or Facebook, but she didn't. She did it on Twitter. And there's a really good documentary about her on Netflix. And not about her. She's talking in the documentary. And she said, look, I figured out early on that when I would tweet something and people would write back to me or they would retweet it, that I would answer them. I would engage in conversations with them. And so she built this raving fan base because she was not a star. She was somebody who was amongst her people, right? And, I don't think she does it anymore. I don't think she could possibly do it. I think she's got more followers than anybody on planet Earth, but that's how she built her influencer brand, right? And so you can be a voice one-to-one, or you can be a voice one-to-many. And so when you start to build influence and you learn how to be a voice from one to many, that is when you will see your business explode. Because one-to-one, it's very hard to scale. So if I'm counting on Pamela and Sherry to come into my office to come into my office so you and I can do a deal, that's a one-to-one, or actually a one-to-two conversation. But if I can have that same conversation to your whole High Vibe Nation, this conversation right now and it's shared on all my social media and into my groups. So now I'm having a conversation one to many, right? That's influence. And that's when the world changed, when social media came out and we could have that conversation. Because before, we could have conversations one to many, and it would be a television commercial. Right. Well, that's not really influence. Television commercial, you're like, oh, dang, I'm just going to watch this stupid commercial so my show will come back. So it doesn't really resonate with that audience. But if people are watching the three of us right now, we have somehow influenced them. They're somehow interested in what Sherry, Pamela, and Lisa have to say this evening. And the ones that aren't, I'm sorry, very sad tonight. They're going to miss a great show. But they're not. But they don't care what we have to say. So we're not influencing them. Right. At least right now. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So so let's use a movement, for example, with the High Vibe Nation, because our vision is to create a movement for the High Vibe Nation. How would you say to influence people in a way to see it our way? Like with higher vibrations, living and being from that higher part of yourself, going out there and creating, multi-levels of success the way we all deserve.
Yeah, that's a great, there was a book. I've almost written it. I think you and I talked about it the other day, Sherry, but I'm not going to publish it. I don't think so. But it was called The Art of the Big Sell. Build a movement, build an empire. And we did a training course around it and that kind of stuff. And, I gave so many examples in that book, and I'll let you tie it to High Vibe Nation. But, I think one of the best movements I've seen out there in business is the Apple movement. Like, let's be real, Apple products, Apple computers, right? They're not out trying to be everything to everybody. Their messaging is very distinct to their people, to the people that what I would call an early adopter. So I think about people, especially in the beginning of Apple, right? And people that will stand outside the Apple store all night long to get the newest, latest, greatest phone or iPad or whatever's out there, and when they could get it on the shelf in a week. But they're early adopters. They're bought into the mission, and that's what is really important. So when you're building a movement, you're going to be one to many as you tell the story, but there will not be many that follow. And that's what people who build a movement, even in business or so like, for example, when we relaunched Fiat and everything, and people said, God, that car left the country the first time as Fix It Again, Tony, you're going to fail. And I said, it isn't about selling the car. It's about building a movement, because I believe that, that if we transform the auto industry, if we can show an industry that has been very stodgy, that women, millennials, and minorities can change the game, that we can do things differently. I believe that it isn't what we sell, AKA the car, it's what we stand for, and people will do business with us. And they did. And so from women, as I and my team stood, especially me, stood for women and women consumers, they would come in and they'd say, this really wasn't my first choice of a car. It wasn't, I'll be honest with you. But you know what? I want to support what you're doing. And what it's be, telling the message to with Boy, we are really going in and out today, aren't we?
I know.
I was going to say our StreamYard's really
It is. StreamYard's
struggling
really weird.
Wow. Yeah. So, so I would say as you go out and build the movement, I mean, you guys have to be two voices to many, and you have to continue to tell the message. It's got to be a consistent message, and you have to tell it every single chance you get. But you have to be okay with maybe only 10 or 20% of the people following. But you look at some of the greatest movements in the world, you can go all the way back biblically with Jesus, right? Not everybody, Bethlehem followed him to the cross. They just didn't. And so, he had his disciples. And so I think every great movement, I think you create your disciples and what I would call your raving fans. And those are the people that will stand by you. And then from that first level of raving fans, they will create raving fans. So movements are built in waves, and they're built in levels. So it's your level, right? You're the first level. You are the creator of the movement. You're going to have the first level of people that are so bought in. They're like, oh my God, I love these women. I believe in what they're doing. We're going to change the world. Great. You pour into them. Then they're going to go to their people, their tribe, their sphere of influence, and they're going to tell the story. That is the way a movement is built. And that is a way that a movement sustains. And, you can look at movements from, and I wrote about it in the book. I say the book, the manuscript. It probably will never be a book. But I wrote about it, religions are movements. Politics is a movement, right? And so to build a movement, you have to be patient. And what happens is why a lot of movements die is because people lose patience. The founders or the leaders of the movement lose patience, and then they start trying to convince people outside of their true followers and their true sphere. And then when that happens, then people are like, oh, they're fanatics, and then you start getting into all of that. And so, I admire what you're doing. It's not easy. It's not for sissies, but you know what? The greatest movements in the world have been created by really great and amazing people, and they're willing to stand up, and they're willing to speak their truth, and they're willing to get knocked down many, many times and get back up and one to many and continue to tell their story.
Wow, that's really powerful. I think this ties in really well with your, what you teach about niches as well, and how that ties into creating your movement, because if you're too diverse, it's going to be hard to create a movement to begin with.
It is. And, and so whether it's a movement or, you're creating a business strategy, let's just say you have, we'll just keep it easy. You have a widget and you're selling the widget. So, the widget is not for everybody. So you've got to, so I tell people when I work with businesses, I'm like, you need to create an avatar. If you're building a movement, you're building a business, whatever it is, you got to create that avatar. Who is the avatar? Who is the person you're talking to? And you never, ever get off that avatar. So if that person is in y'all's sake, a 45-year-old woman, who, is an entrepreneur. I mean, I'm just totally pulling this out of my head, but, but you have to create that movement, because you all know, as the founders of the movement, who you're in sync with. What I like to say is, who are your people? Who's your tribe? Who is bought in? Who believes unequivocally, just like you do? And again, you just have to know there's going to be a lot of no's along the way. But where companies come in and they fail, you look at Whole Foods, and they founded in Austin, Texas, and people around here call them whole paycheck because, they're so expensive. Well, it was prior to Amazon buying them, and they were not out trying to sell to people that were buying it at our other grocery store, the big mass market one, H-E-B. Wasn't their people. They were at farmers markets. They were talking to people that were into organic stuff. So, so they weren't out advertising to the masses. Oh, come and buy our stuff. They didn't have to, because they knew that the people that needed to know, or the people that knew, and then they would bring their people, and that's how it works.
It's funny because it makes me think too. I know you're into the superhero mentality, and so I guess
I am.
So my question to you is, so how do you view yourself in the superhero realm, and how would the audience identify their superhero powers?
Okay, so I don't know that I consider myself a superhero, but
Okay.
but I did talk about superheroes in the book.
Yeah.
And one of the things I said, what would Batman be without Joker? Who would Batman be without the Joker? He would be just another guy in tights, right? So to have a hero, you have to have a villain. And so, and I wrote about Apple in there, where, Apple was the hero to many people, and who was the villain? It was the PCs.
The PCs, right.
Right. And so those were the villains. So, in every story, in every good story, in every good movement, right? Because typically movements are started because you're trying to cure a problem, you're trying to raise awareness, you're trying to do whatever it is. So how do you have a movement without a villain? So who would you, so I would throw that back to you. Who is the villain of the High Vibe Nation? Is that who is
fear?
Okay. Right. Okay. So fear is our villain, and you all are the heroes. And so this hero, this High Vibe Nation, is going to take down fear, but you have to join our movement, and we're going to show you how to take out the villain and the villain's fear. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Well, and I love the idea of, the superpowers too, because I think that just across the board, there's so many applications for that in life and in business. So when you talk about superpowers, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So I think about in the auto industry, people would say, well, who is your villain? Oh, was it men? Oh, absolutely not. No. Our villain was, so the villain in our case, right, was, other dealerships that didn't have an open mind like we do when it came to hiring, when it came to, empowering women consumers, right? So it was the people that weren't doing it like we were doing it. And I say a villain, they weren't our enemies, whatever, but that was our avatar. That was like, I would tell the guys and gals that work for me, I'm like, okay, you see that person over there at that dealership? Yeah, that's who we are never going to be. Right? When customers would come in. So, so our avatar was always to be better than that business model, to always be more encompassing, to always be more out there when it came to being great with our customers, to welcoming diversity onto our sales team, right? We were the anti-car dealer. And so the villain really was to us, and to me personally as the leader, it was the industry itself. Because, and people would say, well, you were a Fiat. Did you, was Mini Cooper your villain, which was like our big competitor car? I'm like, not at all. Not at all. Because people I'm not competing with that. What I'm competing with are the hearts and the minds of the consumers, and to prove that, that we are the good guys and gals, and that we, and that we do what we say we're going to do, and that we're about in diversity and inclusion in our organization. And for that, I would like you to reward us with good behavior. I mean, reward us for our good behavior by letting us or allowing us to earn your business. And not everybody buys into that, right? Not every consumer cares. You got consumers out there like, I don't care how great they are, blah, blah, blah. I just want the best deal. Well, guess what? I'm not talking to those people, right? When I say I'm not talking to them, I'm not advertising to them. I'm not trying to attract them, right? The whole law of attraction. I'm not out trying to go, I'm the cheapest, da-da-da-da. That wasn't what I was trying to attract. Now, did I get deals in sometimes I had to be the cheap? Absolutely. But what I was out there attracting, right, as my organization was the hero, as I saw it in the automotive industry, I was trying to attract the client that cared about building a relationship with their car dealer, that cared about equality for women consumers, that cared about the fact that at least half of my sales team was female, and things like that. Because I knew that was my avatar, was that socially conscious client customer, which was usually women, just for the record. So I knew how to talk to them. I knew how to relate to them. I knew how to market to them. And so you go there, and that's where social media was so powerful for me and for my dealership, because that's where those people are. So we could give them social proof that we were the good guys and gals, right? That they could see it on social media that we were raising money. They could see I was the chair for Go Red. They could see that Pets Alive was at my dealership once a month and we were raising money for them. They could, like, all of it, right? It was social proof, because it isn't just about talking about it. It's about doing it and walking it out every single day.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, for me personally, that's my avatar, is a socially conscious client.
I love that. I love that a lot. And, that's why I keep asking you so many things with what our vision is right now. Because as we're transitioning, Pam and I, to become, the influencers of the High Vibe Nation, and we're obviously having to overcome our own internal battle. And it kind of makes me think of the superhero, how we would identify as Wonder Woman instead of Diana Prince.
Okay, so that's interesting you said that. God, I've got to think for 1 second. I just had a conversation with somebody. Oh my gosh, hopefully it's going to come to me. I think my brain's been out in the hot sun too much today, but it is okay to be Diana Prince. Okay. Okay. This is what it was. Okay. So we were talking about going out on stage and speaking, and I had said, yeah, one of my biggest gigs was like, 8,000 people. And they were like, were you scared? And I said, I just put on my avatar, and my avatar is like Beyonce. Right. So Lisa, yeah. I mean, like, it was at the K. Bailey Hutchison Center in Dallas, like huge, like, yeah, Lisa was like knees knocking. Right. But Beyonce is not scared. In fact, I was looking around going, why aren't there more people here? Right. And so I think that we have got to, come in and out of that sometimes. So I think, especially as women or as people that really want to make a difference, I think that sometimes we are who we are at home and around, because like if we walked around all the time acting like Beyonce,
right,
we wouldn't be good influencers, because people wouldn't think we were real. So I think that you all have to figure out a time where, you guys are just Pam and Sherry, and you're cool and you're chill and people love you and whatever. But then when you get onto a show like this, or when you're out talking to people about your movement or whatever it may be, then that superhero that, so you go from Diana Prince, which is who is your everyday person, right? And then you spin it around and you get in front of people and you are Wonder Woman.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Woo-hoo!
I want to learn the spin now. Now that's going to be like Atlanta.
Yeah, but I think that's really important. I think it's super important for authenticity. Super important, because people. I mean, if people think people are too cool or too bigger than life all the time or whatever, then they're not going to relate to you, and they're not going to get involved with your movement. They have to see you have a bad day. They got to see you cry. They got to see, like, all of the above in real life. But I used to tell this to the people that work for me. You don't have the privilege of not showing up well, especially the leaders in my organization. You show up well, and and you're on. It's game on the minute the camera goes on. It is game on the minute you walk in the front door. And until that time, I don't care what you do, right? You're Diana Prince. But you walk in here, you walk in my office, you walk on a stage, whatever it may be. Hey, Mike, whatever it may be, you have now spun into your avatar, your superhero. And so I think that's the way to think of it. And I'll tell you, when it comes to fear, when I kind of go into that whole Beyonce thing on stage, and I know I'm going to get blowback on that, but like, I don't do it in real life, but when I'm walking out on big stages, or I'm doing television, like national stuff with Fox and things like that, yeah, it's terrifying, because people are really mean, and they're going to say crummy things. Like, I learned a long time ago, you never read the comments, like when you do take TV or anything. And so,
us too.
They're just, people are just, they're just trolls. So whatever, it doesn't matter. But you just, I just go into that like whole Beyonce thing when I'm there, and I'm on, and I'm tight, and whatever I've got to say, and blah, 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 blah. And then when I'm done, I'm like, usually I'm exhausted. Even a 5-minute interview, especially if it's in New York or something, I'm exhausted, because I'm so like, I'm not going to let anybody get to me. I'm not going to let the fear of like, oh God, I hate this angle that they've got me sitting at Mornings with Maria. Like, oh God, I know my right thigh's showing. This sucks. Right. I mean, you just get so into your head that it's like, you know what? I'm here and they're not. So if my right thigh looks bigger than my left one, it's so be it. Right. And so that is where the avatar comes out. That is where Beyonce comes out, or in y'all's case, Wonder Woman.
And I love that. I mean, I love that, because we're all living real life. I mean, all of us. No one is so special.
I mean, Wonder Woman was Diana Prince. Like, she did her everyday life, and she had problems and challenges. and all kinds of stuff. God, I wish that show would come back on, just like the old shows that I used to watch.
I
I loved it. Although I think that we're aging ourselves by saying that.
Yeah.
But anyways, but she had problems, she had things, whatever. And she was not a badass until she became Wonder Woman. Then she was like golden, literally, like, don't touch me. But then remember when she'd come back down and go back into, she'd be like, she was kind of blown back and exhausted. Yeah. So
and isn't that the beauty of it? That we, it's like we don't have to be
that is what made us like her. That's what made us like her. Because here's this average everyday woman that could all of a sudden now spin into a superhero. Right?
Yep.
Would we have ever watched a show about Diana Prince?
Right.
No.
Right.
No.
It's the same thing with the movement.
Love it. I love
what is a superhero without a villain?
Exactly. Yeah.
And the villain is whatever you make it be. So like I said, for me, the villain in the auto industry was never my competition, meaning the cars themselves. It was the industry itself, because I was just so like, you've got to be kidding me. The more years I spent in it, and the more things I saw, and the more stories that I heard. And of course, I was so high profile that I heard a lot of stories. Like, I had a lot of people calling me, and I'd just be like, you cannot make this up. Right. So the industry itself was the villain for me. It was never, ever somebody who would come in and say, hey, I think I'm going to buy a different kind of car, blah, 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 blah. I would fight to get the deal. But if somebody came into me and said, I hate car dealers, I have been to so many places, and you guys are all criminals and you're thieves. Like, to me, I was like, oh, here I go. I'm about to spin into Superwoman here. And that is my.
How did you draw on your inner superpower when that was going on? Because you had to draw on your inner power.
Because I believed so much in what we did and why we did it, that my goal was to win that person over, more so than it was to sell a car. But you and I, we all know that once you win them over, they're buying cars, they're sending their friends. I mean, so
I mean, I have to ask you then, how do you kind of tap into your superpower? How can people do that when they're feeling really challenged?
I think you have to have something you really believe in. Like the two of you really believe in High Vibe Nation, and you're willing to do whatever it takes and so without that passion, it's hard to do. It's impossible. I mean, you have to fundamentally believe that what you do, I open a lot of keynotes with, do you believe that what you do matters? Do you believe that what you do matters? Because if you don't fundamentally believe that what you do matters, you'll never be successful. And when I speak to big organizations, I'll have the receptionist to the CEO in the audience, but that receptionist has got to be bought into the fact that what she or he does matters. They're the ones keeping the wheels on the bus. But if they don't have leadership that makes them feel like that they are just as important as the CEO of that company, you have a very dangerous break right at the beginning of a sales cycle, right? And typically all I work with is sales organizations. So, they're always like, oh, we're stuck. And I'm like, does everybody on the team believe that what they do matters? They're like, oh yeah. And I'm like, we'll see. And I'll go out and I'll open it up, and people are like, I'm up here, they're down there. I'm watching all their faces.
Right.
Yeah.
And people don't believe that. And that's for two reasons. Number one, the leaders don't empower them and don't make them feel like that. They make them feel like they're expendable. I've worked for many of those people in my life. And then number two, they're not really working in their passion and in their purpose. And so, I think, you think about purpose-driven jobs. And so, to me, it would be nurse, especially nowadays, doctor, military, all of our frontline workers, police officers, firefighters, right? Fundamentally, you think about it, those people are not doing what they're doing for the money. They're doing it because at least 98% of them, I would say, is because as a little boy or a little girl, they grew up and they said, I want to change the world. I want to save people. I want to cure cancer. I want to defend my nation. I want to do whatever, right? Those are purpose-driven people. And that's why those brave men and women can go to war and fight for our country. That's why those brave men and women are sitting in the emergency rooms right now, and they're dealing with COVID patients, and they're not quitting their jobs and going home. That the teachers are going, some of them are going to go back to school, it looks like. I don't know yet. But, but all of those, what I would call first responder type jobs, how come, and police officers and firefighters, I mean, people run into burning buildings to save someone they don't know. They are purpose-driven.
Yeah.
Right. They are purpose-driven individuals. And so therefore, that's why they stick with the game when the game gets really tough. Don't you think every nurse and doctor in New York City, when this thing really, really caught wind, should have walked? I mean, they risked their own lives to save people they don't know. Okay. That is a purpose-driven calling.
Yes.
That is. Okay. So those are the people in my mind that stick with the game and that are very, very, and I don't say successful monetarily. I mean, successful as human beings. They're tired, they're beat down, but when they lay their head on their pillow at night, they know that what they do matters.
Yep.
Right. And so, but I'm a firm believer that if somebody is the receptionist and he or she believes that what they do matters, because they know that they're making sure that they're the face and the front person of the company, and they feel good about the fact that they have the power to either get a client to the next step, or to turn that client totally off and send them out the back door. Like if they're empowered like that, I mean, and I've had some boss, I don't know if she's on her name was Emily Kelly, and she follows me. I hope she watches this. She was a boss, and she was my receptionist, but she lived her life to be my gatekeeper. And she'd be like, you are not getting in to see her. She was great. Like, she's the best I've ever had. And I empowered her. And I'm like, girl, you run my life. I don't, and if you were looking at her job description, she was the receptionist. I called her the boss. I'm like, she's the boss. And everyone in the place knew it. And I treated her like she was the boss, because in my mind, she is. Right. She was the first contact. She was my gatekeeper. She made sure my stuff was straight. Like, so when you empower someone like that, she had a hard time leaving. She's like, I mean, people revered her in my dealership. They were like, oh, I don't want to piss off Emily. Like, can't do that. Can't do that, And
it's really true.
It is true. So, what is the purpose? And so depending on whether you're working, if you're a leader, you have to be able to empower people and help them find their underlying purpose. And if you're in a job or you're starting a company, if you can't tell me right now why you do what you do, number one, and number two, if you can't answer the question, do you believe that what you do matters? And I'm not talking about money, because if you do what you love, the money comes. We all know that. Yep. So I never ever do a deal, which makes some people crazy about me, but I will not do a deal just because of money. I've turned down a lot of big deals over money. I'm like, yeah, well, it would just be money. I would hate every day of my life fulfilling that task or fulfilling that job. Why would I do that? There's other things that I love to do that I'm passionate about that, oh, by the way, I'll probably get paid to do them. It'll probably work out for me. Right. So.
Well, and I was going to say, and don't you think having that mentality is a big part of creating that in your life?
Oh, 1,000,000%. Because I think that so many people live in a victim mentality, men and women. Right? Oh, it happened to me. Oh, me, poor me, blah, 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 blah. Well, then you get into the poor me's, and and you think about the world we live in right now. I mean, your movement's very important. I mean, people are overrun and they are paralyzed with fear. Right? The fear of the unknown, the fear of what's going to happen. I look at what's going on right now. Not that I'm not, honestly, I'm not afraid of it. I'm not. What I've been looking at the last 4 months is, I'm going to get blown up again. The capitalist to me, I can't help it. I'm like, what's the opportunity here? Right. Like, there's going to be some things to be able to come in and do, and some opportunities to be able to, maybe bring on some people that before I probably couldn't have brought on. I don't know. I mean, I see opportunity. It sucks being at home. I know we talked about that pre-show. But I think there's some really unique opportunities out there on planet Earth right now. And we're just going to be doing things differently. But it doesn't mean that we're going to quit doing things. And so I would encourage anyone that's watching this, if you're paralyzed right now and you're sitting on the couch and you're not moving, like movement helps, like shake up fear, like shake it up like in a good way. you need to be moving. And whether it's going outside and it's walking for an hour or two a day, if it's, get away from your computer, get away from Zoom. Like, you don't need to sit here and Zoom and do all that. Hey, Eric Swanson, how are you? Woohoo!
Yeah, well, I heard you say on a call recently, on one of your calls, and you were talking about essential workers, and you said that we should all be working for ourselves.
Oh, I'm a firm believer in that. We're all essential workers. It's like, they're talking about, the essential workers. Well, I don't know about you. I need to feed my family. What I do is essential. What everybody who's watching this show does is essential.
Absolutely.
But there are time. So Cindy says she's grateful for the essential workers. I am too. The people that work at the supermarket, whatever. But what I do is essential. What you guys do is essential, because we still have to put food in what everybody who, thank you, Eric.
The economy doesn't run without everyone doing their part.
Yeah, but I mean, everybody is essential. And so, I wish that they would find a different word for essential workers.
Right.
Yeah.
Like first, I feel like the people that are working at the supermarkets are first responders. I really do. I think they're brave and they show up. And, when it was just going crazy, I'm sure it was in y'all's place too, but like the police were at our supermarket. And a lot of them were just young kids, and they're there and they show up, and that's an essential. That's a first responder.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I have family members that work in that industry, and it is. They come into contact with hundreds to thousands of people every single day.
I know. And it's, So anyways, I think that this is a time in our life where we have to look at what we're doing, who we're doing it with, and then, do you believe that what you do matters? And if you don't, now is the perfect time to pivot. And I've been talking about pivoting. I wrote an ebook on pivoting. I pivoted personally. I'm in real estate now. I would not have been 5 months ago. I was literally booked out all year, big corporate speaking gigs. I've got my automotive clients. Like, I was busy 3 weeks a month on an airplane, traveling, going around the country. And when this all happened and I was in Chicago, and the meeting planner said, you need to quit speaking. When you're done speaking, we're putting you on a plane tonight. We're flying you home tonight because Chicago is going to be shut down tomorrow morning. It's going to go into quarantine, and you will not get out of here. And I'm like, oh my God. And I get to Chicago O'Hare. Everyone's got masks on. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I just wasn't bought into Corona at all. I just thought,
same here.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, great. I'm going to die on an airplane going home. But anyways, all of that being said, that next morning I was like, then my agent started calling, this is canceled, this is postponed. And I'm just like, crap, like, what am I going to do now? And it wasn't what am I going to do, thank goodness, to pay my bills. It was like, what am I going to do personally? Like, that was my identity. That's what I did. That was who I was. And so I was like, well, about the only thing I haven't done in my illustrious career is sell real estate.
Right.
And I own a mortgage company, and I've done a gazillion real estate transactions, and funded them and all kinds of stuff, and done my own. So I thought, okay, well, I got some time on my hands. I literally got online, and 4 weeks later I had a real estate license.
Love it.
I love that. And you've done that so many times in your life. You've pivoted over and over.
Yeah, because things in life happen. Like, so I was in the car business, and then it was funny. I wanted to buy a house, and they would not, something with, I don't know if the pay stubs or the commissions or whatever, we had great credit. And so back then, this was like 24 years ago, I called the underwriter. My husband loves to tell the story. And I got our deal done. Now, that would not happen in today's world. You would never get to an underwriter, but I ended up getting our house financed. So then, my son almost died. He choked on an earring, and I knew I needed to quit working 6 days a week. And I was like, so I was going to stay home. And that happened for 5 minutes. And a friend of mine from the mortgage industry called and said, why are you not in the mortgage business? I can get you a job. You'd be amazing. And I'm like, okay. Did that for a year. And I'm like, why am I working for someone else? I started my own company, and 22 years later, we're still in business. And then I was like, well, I have a mortgage company, so I should have an insurance company. So I went and got an insurance license, started an insurance brokerage off of that. And then I was like, well, if I'm doing all that, I should do their financial services. So I went and got all my stockbroker stuff, certified financial planner. So I did that. And all those were running under one. And then I was a fashion major. And so like 12 or 13 years ago, I was at the height of the mortgage career. We were killing it. I was CEO of the company. I told my husband, I'm like, I want to have a store. I want to open my own boutique. I'll still run the company. So I opened a big store called Enjoy Boutique. And I was the buyer and I had someone running it and I'd go in and out, whatever. But it was a dream to always have a store. So yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of things, but I've always done it because I was passionate about doing it. And I always quit when I'm over it. I can't do this anymore, which is what I did in the mortgage business. I mean, we were so busy. It was the most stressful thing ever. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. And people are like, you don't walk out at the top of your career like what you're doing. I'm like, I do. Yeah. I'm going to go do something different because this is not fun anymore. So yeah, that's how I roll. So I've loved the whole real estate transition. And then I had the good fortune, I will say, of partnering with a couple of guys named Haas Pratt, who wrote the book, The Listing Boss. And he's been coached not millions, thousands and thousands of real estate agents all over the country. And then HGTV star Tarek El Mousso from Flipping 101 and Flipper Flop. So anyways, I have a lot of fun working with those guys and leading that team and building a team. So
amazing.
Yeah.
And it sounds like the transition, has not hurt you at all. It sounds like it's just increased your passion and opened you up to expanding within yourself. And because you're expanding in yourself and really aligning and connecting with passion, it's bringing all these other opportunities and people, to you.
It is. And it's, what the most fun, y'all, about what I'm doing right now. And we're about to make some more big announcements. We've already made some announcements, is that I've got so many friends around the country because of our organization. I mean, we can work with people in Canada, all US, Mexico, and 6 countries. And so I've got friends from all around the country that wanted to make a pivot that are now working on our team. And in fact, I've got one person that I love immensely, and she worked for me for a long time, and she just sent me a note. In fact, I even had Tarek on the phone with her last week. I'm like, we got to get her. She's amazing. And she just said, I think it's time I think I'm coming. I'm like, I knew you were going to come. It's just a matter of when. But it's really fun to be able to help people that I love, admire, and respect pivot. And so I can take my whole vast knowledge of real estate, which, I know a lot, of course, after 22 years in the mortgage industry and being a developer and a builder ourselves, and take that and help people find their homes. I love that. But I really love building out the team, and I love helping people that I know, love, and respect pivot. And then I'm even meeting people that I'm coming to know, love, and respect because they're really cool people. And so, yeah, it's all good. Just like my dad used to say, as long as you're vertical. If I'm vertical, I'm good. The day you're not vertical, you're not good anymore.
Well, and I love that you bring up that you're meeting people, because one of the things I know you talk about is, having at least 5 people on your list that you have to meet. And so can you talk a little bit about that and why that is?
Yeah. So I have 5 people a day. Now, I haven't done it for the last 3 or 4 days. And so I'm a little off my game right now, but I start again tomorrow. But 5 people a day that I reach out to. And I don't necessarily meet them, right? Because it's a different world we live in today. But as I'm looking at and working with Eric, you need to be on our team. As we're looking at people that we want to bring on. And of course, it's easier when Tarek El Mousso is, of HGTV is the leader of the team, right? So it's a little bit easier to get people to respond and things like that. There's no doubt about it. But as we're sitting there and we're brainstorming, Tarek, Haas, and I, and talking about, who are the people that we want to work with, that we want to be affiliated with. And, and just reaching out to people that I didn't know before and following them. But, and I would say this to anybody, it isn't just about like, hey, I want you to work for me. You have to start, which is part of being a Sellionaire, you have to start building those relationships with people. And today we're building them virtually, right? It's, I see a high performer on Instagram or somebody who had a really great month. I start watching them. I start congratulating them. I start looking at what they're up to, and then I usually stick Tarek on them after that, and the rest is history. So I am a talent scout. I am always scoping. I was a talent scout in the industry too.
Yes, you are. Well, I've been part of your big sellers group for years and years now. Yeah. And something that I always hear you say that I love is you say that the future is female.
Oh, yes.
Tell us about that.
Which I wish that I would have coined that. I mean, I picked it up along the way, just like all of us did, but the future is female, you know? And I love the fact that women are starting, I'm not saying starting, but kind of starting, like in the last few years, starting to rise up and go, we ain't going to take this anymore, right? Mm-hmm. And, you know, and with all this stuff that's been going on lately, and someone said something to me about it, and I said, well, I'll tell you this, if it's been less than 100 years, or I think we just had our 100th anniversary for the suffragettes. If the suffragettes would not have gone out, and these were nice church-going women, right? These were the women of society, but they all got out there and they marched and they had their signs, and because they did not want to be chattel anymore, and they wanted the right to vote, and they realized that they were human beings, and they were beaten, they were jailed, and they were raped. And these were the finest women, you know, that went out. But if those women would not have done what they did for all of us 100 years ago, we wouldn't be sitting here today doing what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I think that there's a big movement in this country, and I think there's a big movement about equality. Yep. You know, whether it's the color of your skin, or it's your gender, or it's your sexual orientation, or whatever it is, you know. Because I bet you if God beamed down here right now, that he would not rate anybody any differently. I think he would look at your heart and the rest of it just happens to be how you are and who you are. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things we talk about quite a bit here is that, you know, we're more than just what we look like, you know, we're spirits that are just traveling for a time in these bodies. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, the day you're done, you're done. So why not leave the biggest impact that you can possibly leave on planet Earth? Mm-hmm. And so I think that's where passion comes in. I think that's where, you know, people go out and they build a movement, right? And I will tell you, there are some movements for good, like yours, and there are some movements for evil. Okay. Mm-hmm. And you've seen some of the evil ones over history, you know. An evil movement were the Nazis, but they were a movement. They were bought in, and they believed that, you know, that the Jews needed to be murdered. Like they believed, like that Nazis were a movement. That was an evil, horrible movement. Mm-hmm. So, but then you have the great movements, right? And so, and I think that that's the only way that you get anything done. And again, I mean, just the movement I've studied very, very heavily was the 19th Amendment. And, you know, back in 1919, and when those women came out and they just made the decision, we're not going to take this anymore. And when you look at the history of women could not even get a credit card until 1977. Mm-hmm. In 1965, it was the first year that women could get birth control without their husband's permission.
Wow.
Like, are you kidding me?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, could you imagine us three like living in that world? Mm-hmm. And so,
I could not, because just seeing the type of women we are and the forces that we are,
right?
I couldn't have kept my mouth shut during that time.
Well, and you know what? And they couldn't either. But think about, like, we have the freedom to have this conversation right now. If we were 100 years ago, we would have been jailed. We would have been, our families would have been disgraced. Mm-hmm. Our husbands would have probably lost their jobs, like the whole bit. Right. So, you know, I mean, I think it's important, you know, that you know, that people stand up. I do. I think it's important. I think that there's the right way to do it and the wrong way to do it. Mm-hmm. But I think it's important to stand up if you believe to your soul that that's what you're doing, because see, that's what will empower you. That's what will push you. That's what will give you your underlying purpose. Mm-hmm. And I always stood up for women in the automotive industry, and much to my dismay, many times. I mean, to my, not my dismay, to my detriment. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. I have to wait until I die for them to be published, because it's bad.
Yeah. I love that you're saying that, though, because, you know, even with myself, I had to go through many stages of adversity, you know, and caring about what people thought, to come full circle to now dare to be myself and to really share my truth. And so hearing another woman like you really say, you know what, we gotta align and connect with our passion. We gotta be ourselves, and we gotta be willing to speak our truth. It's very transforming and empowering.
But you have to be willing. So, there are a lot of people out there that want to speak their truth, but then they're not willing to take the consequences. Like I think about speaking my truth in the auto industry. Like I had a lot of consequences.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. And brutal. Like,
I
can't make
it
it up stuff.
Industry too. So I definitely know what you're talking about.
Yeah. But you know what? I was like, I don't care. Come at me, because at the end of the day, I'm not going to shut up about this. Like, no, there's no reason that women shouldn't be sitting here, and there's no reason that women should be doing this. And there's no reason. I don't believe it. Come at me. You can do whatever you want to do, because I'm high profile enough that if you come at me, a lot of people are going to find out about it. And so it was easy to get, build a movement. So it was easy to get all of the women behind me a lot of times, and other women like me, because they knew that we could take the punches, because we could also talk about taking the punches. Like I was never afraid, and I'm still afraid to this day, to say this one, and this one did this, because they can't hurt me. But I know those stories because they've hurt friends of mine, or they've hurt women that I've mentored, or women that I know. And so so sometimes as leaders of a movement, we have to be the voice of many. Yeah. And if you choose to step into that position, like what you gals are doing and what I did, you have to be willing to take the heat. And it's hard sometimes, right? But you have to be willing to take the heat. But that's to me where purpose wins, because I used to be like, come on. I mean, people I worked with, people that, anyways, they'd come at me and I'd be like, okay, then do something different. But I'm not changing my stance. End of story.
Well, and to that point, I mean, I think that, when we're authentic with ourselves in doing that, then we only empower ourselves more, but we also empower each other, because we know we're not the only ones. And so it allows other people to then do the same thing.
Right. Yeah. And I remember when I was speaking at a big event, and somebody I used to know, I'll just leave it at that, was somehow he ended up at the table with the women in automotive group. And he said something like, she's not as great as everyone thinks whatever it was. And I mean, it was a huge event in Las Vegas. I was the keynote speaker. It was an automotive event. They came down on him like there was no tomorrow. They met me at the backstage and said, he said that, I mean, he was almost tarred and feathered out of the auto industry. And all that was just my gals, because they know that I would have done the same thing for them. Right. And so that would be my advice, for you all, for your movement. I mean, it may not be thousands of people. It may be hundreds of people, and it may be 10 people. But if you have 10 people that tell 10 people, they get 10 people. Right. And that's what will build a movement. But it's not easy.
Yeah. Well, gosh, we really appreciate everything you've shared with our audience. This has just been very powerful and extremely insightful.
Good.
Ways for all of us.
Good. Well, I hope that you guys, I say you guys, I would say you guys, I wish the two of you continued success, because I know what you're doing is it's against all odds. Let's be real. And when you do something that's out of the box, or you do something that's at a high vibe level, the haters are going to hate. And, and I'll tell you this, the haters are the ones that'll watch you more than anybody. That's what cracks me up the most. It's like, the other ones just sit there like, oh, they're great, whatever. But the haters are going to watch, and, and they're almost, and they will create chaos behind the scenes. So you just have to know that, right? And you just have to be really secure, which I know both of you are, in what you're doing and why you're doing it. And just don't let it get you down. And at least, with you two, at least it's powers and numbers, because you have two. You have each other.
That's awesome.
And we have an amazing community. I mean, I just give so much credit to the people who come here and watch consistently and support us. I mean, every time we're on, we're just very, very fortunate.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I have now liked the High Vibe Nation, so I will absolutely, because I have not been on social much this week, so I have not caught up, but I am now a fan of the High Vibe Nation. And so I'll get to watch everything that you girls have going on, and just wish you success. And And just know that I'll be rooting for you. And I think that's sometimes, I think that that's what you need, is that you just need people that are going to root for you.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah. You are so
and we're definitely watching you as well.
Well, thank you. I very much appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I watch you all the time. I mean, I've known you for years, so I have been really a part of what you're doing. And we both appreciate you for being on the show with us. So tell our audience how they can get a hold of you and what you have going on right now that they can be part of.
Well, if you want to pivot and you want to come work on in our real estate organization, we would love to talk to you. I'm not going to say have you, because we're really picky about who we work with, and the fact that they've got to be purpose driven and really committed to making impact, right? Being an influencer. So I'd love to talk to you about that. LisaCopeland.com. You can follow me on social media. I'm kind of everywhere. And, and I wish everybody the best. We're in very trying times, but I would just encourage you that sometimes, this is like we're iron, and that's the fire, and it's sharpening us, and let it sharpen you. Let it make you go as deep as you can go into your soul and go, okay, what is my third act? Like for me, I'm laughing. I told all my friends, I'm like, this is my third act. It's my last one. They're like, we don't believe you. This is not your last act, but it's fine to be in your third act. Your third act or your 10th act,
We're not, yeah.
Yeah, it's all good, right? But find what that is. Do not sit home and cry in your Cheerios. Don't do that. There are things to do out there, and there's opportunities to be had. I mean, the vodka company, Tito's, who's right here in Austin, they're making hand sanitizer now. Okay, that's smart, right?
Yeah. And you have something to give. Everyone has something to give, and I think we forget that. So
yeah, everybody's got something to give. So anyways, but again, I'll be in the stands. I'll be rooting for you. Just stay the course. Stay loyal to your tribe, and be real careful who you let into your tribe. I'll tell you that too. That's I learned that a long time ago. Is I'm super careful who I let in, because there are a lot of wolf in sheep's clothing. No, that's it. Right. Yeah. Yep. So anytime you're out trying to change the world, you're going to have people that are going to try to stop you. So people or forces,
right.
Whatever you believe, but yeah.
Well, Pam and I have a tremendous faith in God, so we surrender our power to that and allow that to be, moving through us and connecting with people like you who are faith-driven as well. So we appreciate you very much and everything you've shared with us and our audience today. So Pam, tell the audience how they can reach us and get a hold of us.
And of course, you can all find us at thehighvibenation.com, and you can find us on Facebook at The High Vibe Nation. You can also find us on Instagram at The High Vibe Nation. And thank you again, as always, for being here with us. Such a joy to be with all of you.
Awesome. Thank you all. See you next week. Have a great night.
All right. And guys,
from everybody here at the High Vibe Nation, we want to say thank you for choosing to raise your vibration. And of course, please like, share, and subscribe. If you need to find us on the web, check us out at www.thehighvibenation.com. Looking forward to seeing you on the next episode, and keep high vibing.